All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I now call to order the Palm Desert City Council study session for August 20th. And we will begin today with item 2A, an introduction of the Commercial Compliance Program and request for City Council feedback.
Good afternoon, Mayor Truby, members of the City Council, Paul Villanueva, Senior Code Compliance Officer. Paul Villanueva, Senior Code Compliance Officer.
Good afternoon, Mayor Truby, council members, Jesus Centeno, Senior Code Compliance Officer.
So today there it is. Today we'll be providing a joint presentation of the Commercial Compliance Program. So the objectives of the program are to encourage voluntary compliance, form partnerships with businesses and properties, protect public health and safety, ensure transparent compliance practices, and to enhance the appearance of commercial districts. Why now? Well, previously the Code Compliance Officer assigned to the commercial areas of Highway 111 and El Paseo was also responsible for all the residential areas south of Highway 111. Since then, the city has hired a new officer who is responsible strictly for the residential south of 111, allowing a commercial officer to be dedicated to those areas. So the dedicated commercial officer will now focus on providing outreach, education, and identifying issues before they escalate, and supporting the long-term community goals of having aesthetically pleasing business districts. Program vision is to educate, form partnership, and gain compliance. We will do this through proactive outreach, building strong partnerships, education and support first, building strong partnerships, and maintaining open communications to preserve safe and attractive commercial districts. And some of the components, the core components for the program are going to be the business license compliance, zoning, zero blight program, outreach response in commercial areas, entertainment site plan, and commercial fire inspections.
Business license is one of our major components of the business license compliance program. We did launch a program, if we could get that brought up on the screen. You can switch it over to the February. So we launched the program back in March with 708 unlicensed businesses at the time. We did conduct 568 inspections from March to about the tail end of June. We did those inspections mainly on Highway 111 and Alpha Sale Corridor, and then eventually moved into the residential areas. Just making sure that all businesses were current on licenses. As you can see here, we have a couple of different colored dots. The green ones were businesses that were found to have licenses or came into compliance afterwards. The red ones are new. They are unlicensed currently. We need to go back and re-inspect those. And then the black ones are businesses that were found to be out of business at the time of our inspection. So, yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you give me an idea of how many total business licenses there are in the city? To give me an idea of scale, what 700 to 800 unlicensed businesses amounts to? Is that the count?
He's talking about citywide total.
Is that it
I
up
think
there?
I want to say it's a 4,608.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
So we're talking about 15%? Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Of course. So like I said, we did do those inspections from March all the way up to about the tail end of June, and we got a re-entry of information from HDL, which is the one to take care of our business licenses, and that's what brought up the new information that we have up on the screen now. So we go back to the presentation. Back to the presentation. Maintaining clean and safe accessibility commercial corridor through cooperation and response. These are our main focuses for our commercial compliance enforcement. As you can see, we do have property maintenance, trash and debris, and signage, among other things. Coordinated and inspections and promote safety and regulation compliance. With the fire marshal being in-house now, we are able to conduct regulatory commercial inspections on properties, and we do go along with them. We have gone on a handful of them with them, just so that we get an idea as to what they're looking for. We also are doing regulatory inspections on massage establishments, tobacco establishments, and cannabis establishments throughout the year. Building outreach and branding. We'd like to develop a link on the website to better help business owners get information that they may need, whether it be for permitting, licensing, and stuff like that, just to get them a better organized location for them, so that they don't have to sift through the city's websites and stuff like that, just so they have somewhere to go to that's directed for them to help them out. Collaborating with local business partners to keep better informed. And then our main goal is to build a communication channel with business owners and property owners throughout the city as well through this program. So our initial launch on this program would be, for our phase 1 would be our Alpha Paseo and Highway 111 area, just to launch the program, just to kind of focus in on one of our major corridors of business and commercial areas. Our second phase would include our Monterey corridor and Cook on the north side of the city. And then our third phase would be along the Washington corridor and the central area of Cook, just taking care of any kind of industrial commercial areas in that area as well.
And that completes the program. If you have any questions, staff is available.
Any questions from my colleagues?
My question, well, first the comment. Oh, wait, we're supposed to do questions first. In regards to the entertainment site plans, is that for special events like concerts in the park, or does that include things like charity walks, 5Ks, what falls under the entertainment compliance?
So for the commercial districts, it's going to be more of your live music, things of that nature, not entertainment at the park.
Okay. So for example, I know that there is one of the establishments on San Pablo that is looking to have live music within, but may spill out into the sidewalk. Would that be that kind of event?
Correct. It would need to be reviewed, and the site plan would be issued if necessary.
Perfect. Thank you.
Or I'm sorry, yeah, the permit.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harnick?
Thank you. I really appreciate that this is based on education and collaboration and kind of building a partnership where you're working together, and it's about aesthetics and about safety, and I really appreciate that. One of them, when you talk about the zero blight and outreach services, which I think is great, you talk about landscaping and exterior lighting. I don't see anything about lighting like in windows. Is that something you're going to cover? Because some of those signs that are lighted, that are in windows, aren't really that aesthetically pleasing.
Would you be referencing like some smoke shops and or dispensaries? Like that, the neons or bright?
Yeah, neons in general, but I would imagine we have to be a little broader than how the light is created.
Right.
So it's, how do we have something about because generally those, or many of them may be interior lights, but they're on the inside of the window. And they're equally offensive even though they're inside. Now, I just wonder if we've got something we're looking at, or does that go under, some lighting ordinances? How are we going to deal with that?
So maybe I can speak on that. This is Rosie Lua. We have lighting ordinance updates that will be going into our Unified Development Code, and that is coming. Right now, in their compliance program for their launch, it's only with what's within our code currently. And so as we complete the process for the Unified Development Code, then they'll be able to enforce on lighting of neon and any other lighting that we determine that needs to have compliance measures.
All right, thank you. So that'll still be under your charge. The other thing is on the page that says branding and outreach strategy. It's kind of a small thing-ish. Provide information in the weekly administrative report, then parenthetically, WAR, for tracking and reporting. I'm wondering if it might, just like we're code compliance, we're not code enforcement, could it be maybe the weekly administrative update? So the acronym is not WAR?
Certainly. Yes.
Or whatever you so choose, but, you know, we want to be those people who work with each other. So thank you.
How about, I recommend WOW, Weekly Admin Update.
All right. Any cost of implementation associated with this?
There currently is no cost that the city would incur at this point. Everything that we have is still within our bounds, with staff and stuff like that, we have everything covered.
Perfect. And I want to actually ask if Councilmember Nastandy, if you have any questions.
No, I don't have any questions, actually. Were a lot of the businesses surprised they needed a business license? I guess that's
We need
more
you
of
to
a,
turn on your microphone there, Gina.
oh,
There
sorry.
we go. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was just wondering of the businesses that did not have a license, did most of them not know about our business license regulation? Or could you give a discussion on that, just touch on it?
So a majority of them did know about the business licenses because they are in our system. So they did apply for a license and just didn't either follow through or pay fees or provide documentation that they may have needed to be actually current in our system.
Okay, so it was a positive engagement and the residents weren't up, or the business owners weren't upset that they were being contacted then. It was pretty much positive as you would describe?
For the most part, we did have some that were little, didn't understand why they were being contacted, but as soon as we obviously explained the stuff that was going on, they were okay with it and receptive to the information.
Okay, well, thank you. It was a great report and much needed. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any comments or thoughts from my colleagues?
Thank you for all you do. I know that it may seem plain and simple and easy, but I know that the both of you had some pretty rough experiences in going to check on our community and businesses, so thank you for that.
Most people just don't know. They don't read the municipal code. They don't know what the expectations are. And they need some education. And that's not an easy job because they don't necessarily appreciate you coming to educate. So continue to be nice, but nice isn't going to protect you. You guys know. But from my perspective, you're doing a great job. And as long as you stay consistent, professional, and firm, I will continue to support everything you guys do. Let's keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I agree, and it sounds like the council's unanimous in our support of moving forward. All right. Thank you very much. All right. We now move on to item 2B, Progressive Design Build Procurement Update and Project Delivery Approach for the new Palm Desert Library Facility.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and fellow council members, Councilmember Sande via Zoom. My name is Ryan Lamb, Capital Projects Senior Project Manager, and I'm here to present an update on the procurement for progressive design build services for the new library facility, as well as a general project update of where we're at and how the project is progressing and how we look to move forward in progression with the project. So items that we're going to cover today, just how we got here, update on the procurement, like I had mentioned, on the progressive design build, strategic options for moving forward, project funding, the budget and other funding options, as well as what our next steps would look like based on feedback that we would be receiving from the council today. So without going all the way back, we'll start in March of 26. That is when we did an amendment with Tilden Coyle to end the contract services for their progressive design build effort due to their validation report coming in with an approximate $50 million delivery of their scope of work, which calculates out to a $60 million project once you incorporate all the associated soft costs. And we assessed that holistically with all departments and city manager and city staff and identified that we had to find a better way to deliver the project. We hear City Council, we understand that we want to have a more affordable project, yet without compromising quality and value. And so that's what we did moving forward. So in April of 26, we released a new RFP for progressive design build services. And the modification that we did for this RFP, where in the previous effort, we had the design validation port as part of the contract scope of work. So once we selected a design build firm initially, which was Tilden Coyle, based on qualifications, then they gave us their validation report. And then that's when we found out that in order for them to deliver the project, it was a significant budget variance that we were not comfortable with. So what we did was we incorporated a design validation report tier effort in the RFP process. So once we received all the qualifications, we had we received six responses with all their qualifications. We assessed those, we evaluated, and we identified that 3 of them we wanted to shortlist, and which we then had them provide a design validation report, which basically assessed the current design from Richard Kennedy Architects. They provided their estimates and budget, their recommendations for potential value engineering, opportunities, anything that they felt was worthy of us knowing and hearing and ensuring that they understand our project as much as they need to understand our project to move it forward. So a few weeks later, we received the validation reports as well as holding interviews with those 3 firms. After that assessment, the team that did the interviews, we identified 2 of the firms for further evaluation, further interviewing. We wanted to do a little more due diligence, get into more, not necessarily the qualifications, but really get into their processes, how they design, how they work together, how they communicate. And all of that was important because we're looking for a partner that we're going to be working with for the coming years. And we want to make sure that they understand us, we understand them, and we understand that we can work together. And that's the most important thing to ensure that in picking that correct partner. So we've completed the second interview with those 2 firms, and we're looking, based on the feedback that we received today, we're looking to address how one of those firms would be the best fit, and we'll be looking to come back in the September meeting to award a contract and the scope of work based on the feedback we received today. So as I'd mentioned, for the procurement update, 6 proposals, 3 firms. I won't go through the nitty-gritty of the process again, but basically what we're looking for, the criteria, the qualifications, their experience, their approaches, and then as we got into the interview, really how they work together and how we would work with them. So the design validation on that, they presented, all parties that did the cost validation reports presented a list of recommendations for value engineering, from high-level items, high-value items to low-level items. Some made sense to the programming we're looking for, others did not. Ultimately, we as a team evaluated all those value engineering items from design and construction, as well as programming and operations. And so these are just some of the items that we pulled from those validations where they were identifying and making recommendations for how we could assess the existing design and how we could look to progress and move forward. As I mentioned, we were still looking to ensure that we were going to move forward with whether we continue with the Richard Kennedy design or if it evolves into something else that it's still more cost effective. We understand that we want to deliver yet still quality, and so that's where we find the balance between what is worthy of being something that can be adjusted, shifted, removed, or edited. So some of those items besides what we had there in the sketch, so we have single building. Right now, the Richard Kennedy design has a larger element for the library and then a smaller community building, which generated a breezeway between the buildings. So what we heard from all the parties was there's opportunity to bring those together. That's gonna save on cost, that's gonna save on square footage. Look to make some of those adjustments if that's something that we wanted to go down that road. Steel reduction, large steel canopy, steel construction, acoustic baffling instead of steel ceiling structure within the facility, reducing the building height. It was at some points the building was over 25 feet tall. So if we bring it down the building height in certain areas, we could still have a good volume, but at also reduced costs as well as operation costs. We have less mechanical, less air conditioning costs, less electrical, everything else associated with that. So we're looking at it life cycle costs, not just initial upfront costs. Simplifying the site work, we can reduce the landscaping. If we want to reduce the planting, modify it, additional trees, less trees, more, there's a variety of ways to do it, but there were many opportunities in areas because it is a 2-acre site for the building. So there's opportunities there that we can still maintain good value or good quality with also a good value. And then finishes, where there were some higher end finishes that were selected for various locations throughout the building that we can either look to either pull those back to reduce the quantities, or we can modify and change them out with alternate qualities. So there's a lot of ways that we can look to make some changes if we did want to shift away from the Richard Kennedy design. And then there's a lot of glass. So there's a curtain wall system, which is a structure of glass, which if we went to storefront, it's a different system. It's a more cost-effective system. So that's an opportunity as well. And then so from a programming operations standpoint, we met with the city library team. We identified what their needs are, how they're operating, what their wants are, where there's some augmentation to the building program, some early program items that were asked for at the beginning of the project that aren't necessarily a need today. Some of those items being the cafe and the demonstration kitchen, which they're, if those are high cost per square foot items within the building program. So those being, that square footage being reallocated to a lower cost per square foot, like increasing the conference room size, which that is one of the biggest elements that we hear from the residents and the visitors, is that multi-purpose conference room, how it's used, and being able to have larger events. And then bringing that visitor center into the lobby like it is now at the existing library at the COD facility, where the original plan in the Richard Kennedy design was for it to be a standalone space. This brings that into the lobby, so it's a shared space. You get staffing, efficiencies to help out, as well as you get the foot traffic from, if you're coming to the library, you see the visitor center. You come in to see the visitor center, you're seeing the library, versus it being a standalone. And then something like the furniture, we'll reassess the furniture and fixtures and equipment for more cost-effective, yet still high-quality items, and taller book stacks, where the original plan was to have low book stacks that could be mobile and move around. That not only is that more costly because it takes up more square footage, but it's also, from a structural assessment and feasibility moving forward, there's more cost associated with that. So overall, the value of making any augmentations or changes here, we have the reduced cost per square foot, reduced operating costs, and more efficient staffing models. All right, so for more on the progressive design build, so presentations, these are some sketches and some renderings that were done by firms that submitted. So these are not overly designed as far as they didn't meet with us to figure out what we wanted. They looked at what we had in the Richard Kennedy design. They presented, showing us what their team is capable, what they were thinking of, where the projects could go. All of this, as we move forward, if we did choose to go with the team to go with an alternate design, these are just high-level concepts that showed us how the teams were working and what their processes are and their thought process and their approach to design. And then in contrast, so you have the Richard Kennedy design on the left, and then one of the designs from the RFP process showing that, we can still have a high-quality facility even if we were to go look at some redesign opportunities. So strategic options and delivery. So we're in a very atypical escalation period in our economy the last couple of years. So we've been seeing averaging about 3% annual increase in cost to deliver projects. And the last 2 years, there's been a high number of variables that have contributed to an average of about 9% per year. So basically 30 million 2 years ago is now 35, 36 million. And we're seeing that in capital projects department. We're reassessing all of our projects, ensuring that we are considering escalation factors. We're looking to move things as quickly as possible. Time is of the essence. Time is money. We want to make decisions as quickly as possible. We want to implement projects as quickly as possible and reprioritize as necessary to ensure that we're delivering the projects that the City Council wants us to deliver in a timely manner. So looking back at where we were with Tilden Coil, showing that we had that $50 million cost estimate from them, which equated to that 60 million. So just this process alone, moving away from Tilden Coil and going with an alternative, even if we were to stay with the Richard Kennedy design, we are looking at estimating a $5 million savings just by having a different firm. And that's based on the estimates that we received from them during the RFP evaluation process. And then another option would be for the firm that we ultimately select and contract with to go through a value engineering process. It's going to add a few more months of design in order to get to where we were with the 30% deliverable, but we believe that it would be fruitful to do that effort to save money if that was the direction that we would want to receive from City Council on that. Now, these are estimates. The number that delta variance on the design builder cost for the option 2, that is all contingent on what value engineering items are selected, are determined. There were upwards of $15, $16 million of recommendations that we just know we can't do all of them, otherwise we're going to end up with a box. So we're anticipating roughly probably around 10 in savings of the value engineering, but ultimately everything is on the table. We're not saying option 2 is the final. It could be a completely different option that we value engineer more. We can reduce the square footage if that's what needs to be done for more cost effective. If even that 45 million is still not the number that we want to go lower, that's what we'll do. We will work together with the team to identify the priorities of the program and the project and the facility and deliver the project in alignment with the goals and the desire of the City Council. So project funding, so right now we have currently approved, we have $30 million in the approved budget, 20 of that in capital bond funds, 4 that we got from the county, and $6 million in Measure G funds. And potential additional funding that we have currently available, we have $4 million that is in planned future Measure G funds, that was in the 5-year plan. We have $8.5 million in fiscal year end fund balance from this last fiscal year, and another $7.5 million in capital bond funds from reprioritized project. And as I mentioned, that just goes to us constantly evaluating our project list and identifying which ones make sense to have sooner than later, and which ones we can move out to later dates that just work more efficiently and more cost effectively. And then other funding opportunities that we are, these are not assured, these are not guaranteed, but these are things that we're always looking at. So we have the undesignated general fund balance, we have the CIP reserves, there's a financing option that we can be moving forward with, and that'll be presented by the finance department at a later City Council meeting. And also grants, we're constantly looking for grants. We have 2 right now that we've applied for. We won't know, one of them we won't know until the end of this year, another one we won't know until sometime next year, but we're constantly have our eye on potential grants and applying as we see that they make sense and that they could be a feasible application to our project. So next steps. So today, obviously, we're at our study session, looking to get some feedback on how the council would like the project to be moving forward. We have completed the evaluations with the design build firms, and we're based on what their final scope of work will be. We'll have that final negotiation with those firms, and ultimately September meeting to look to make a recommendation for award for that scope of work and for that contract with the design builder. And keep in mind that that award of contract will only be for the phase one of the services for the design builder. It's not for the construction. So the construction, once they complete that phase one, which is all the pre-design, pre-construction, construction documents, plan approval, that's the phase one piece of it. Phase two, which is the design portion, then that they'll give us their guaranteed max price proposal, which we would negotiate that with them to ensure that it aligns with our project budget, our project goals, and then ultimately bring that to the city council to approve that amendment and then move forward with construction aspects. Now, our checks and balances along the way in phase one, that at each milestone deliverable at 30%, 60%, 90%, we have our construction management team, we have our team, we are reviewing their plans, quality control, cost estimations, cost reconciliation to ensure that the project is not going to run away from us. We're going to identify what our goal is. Now, it's not a guaranteed max price like the contract amendment will be, but we will have our goal that we will want them to be moving towards. So if, for example, if we tell them $45 million and they come and give us their 30% milestone with a cost estimate of, significantly higher than that, we're going to back that down. We're going to work with them and ensure that we're meeting that goal. And that's the process that we do to ensure that we're going to meet our goals to ultimately be done with the project, deliver and open in fiscal year 28-29 at the tail end of our lease agreement with College of the Desert. So recap. So we'll look to recommend that award of contract at the next city council meeting based on the feedback. We have the project delivery options, either to continue with the Richard Kennedy design or work with the design builder to come up with an alternative design, more cost-effective design. And again, option two is not the end. We're evaluating everything if that's what we need to do. And the budget, we have the $30 million approved with $20 million in potential additional funding available if the city council wishes for us to go down that route for the additional funding. With that, I will open up for any questions and comments from the council.
Okay, any questions from my colleagues? Okay, Gina.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, the image we're seeing right now, all the glass structure is really what is increasing the expense. And then you showed a couple of other images of other options, which it's still just in the design phase, but it shows much less glass. Are you of the opinion that in order to get this cost down, we need to do some of these other options?
Yes. That is the curtain wall system, which is the large amounts of glass, that's a structural system of glazing the glass. That is a high value item that it would not be the same if we use the storefront system, but we would still get lots of glass, lots of light on the north side of the building, but at a more cost-effective dollar figure.
Correct. So that basically is leading me down to where I want to go with this, but those are comments, so I'll defer to my colleagues to answer any of the questions they might have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Question for finance staff. When we considered the budget, we saw some multi-year projections that showed dipping into our reserves and potentially below our reserve thresholds. Were those projections based on the original $30 million expectation, or did that include higher, I don't remember, on the estimates for the library?
They were based on the 30 million, but they also included a few other projects to get them to dip below that number.
And those other projects remain in the capital improvement plan?
Yes.
So this would ostensibly or potentially add another $15 million to the projected spend that would tap into
It does, however, what's not included in that analysis was the increase in revenue from 25-26 that we're going to be talking about later. So that would offset about $9 million of that 15 million. And then the growth moving forward from that would also not be included in that prior analysis.
As staff, we look at how we valued, engineered this, and thank you for doing that, very helpful. Has there also been any discussion on a staff level of looking comprehensively at our capital improvement plan and where we could value engineer as well, and also change priorities? Has that conversation been taking place, or?
Yeah, so when you say value engineer our plan, are you talking about like prioritizing projects and reevaluating the projects?
Both. So we have individual projects. This is one of them, and you guys value engineered it. And so then we have other projects that we can value engineer or reprioritize, right?
Yeah, so I'll let Casey, our director, I know he's been a little more involved with that effort, so.
And if I may, Mayor Pro Tem, so part of this last CIP and the budget process, we looked at every single project so that it wasn't just in the CIP, everyone got a hard look. So a couple of things we did is we looked at projects that were on the docket, what could be de-scoped from planned parks or whatnot. And so we looked at those that had been long time on the CIP. Also, what we're doing is, as you see different park improvements like Dave Irwin, we're bringing a scope check on each of these major projects to the council before we go out to award construction so that we're in alignment both on budget as well as the expectation of City Council. But I'll have Casey add on.
Thank you, Chris. And that's exactly what we're doing. So every single project that's on our capital improvement program, we're taking a hard look at, when is a good time to do this, whether it's right now or not? And every project is going through a scope check, right? So we want to make sure that what we're delivering is value-based, but still have the same quality. So very similar to the Dave Irwin Park, how we're looking at every single amenity of that park and deciding whether or not we're going to continue on with those or not, or they can be added on as a future date. So we're doing that with every single project within the program.
Excuse Councilmember Perdetto, if I may. What I was remiss in stating is that the $7.5 million that they pointed out from capital bond proceeds is also not considered in that prior evaluation. So that is an additional resource for this project.
Okay, Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, well, first, if we're looking to reprioritize, do we have an idea of what we would be either sacrificing or reducing the most as we look at what we're going to carve? Is there an idea? I mean, obviously, we think everything's important or else it wouldn't be part of what we're exploring. So what are we potentially looking to either postpone in order to prioritize? What's the magic 8-ball telling you?
There isn't really a magic 8-ball or a perfect answer. We're just taking a look at, all of those projects, especially the higher volume, the higher value projects, and whether or not they're an absolute need right now, or if it makes sense to just, like I said, move them a little bit further down. Nothing's really truly being eliminated. One of the things that we, and I'll speak a little bit to the grants. We get a lot of information back from grants about not being shovel ready, and so we're missing out on opportunities of achieving these grants. And so part of what we're doing is assessing what we can do to get the designs complete to have these projects shovel ready, meaning that the project's ready to go, and so that we can apply for these grants and again achieve them, but they're ready to go, but they're not being done right now. So that's kind of some of the prioritization that we're doing. So we're designing them, and not shelving them is a bad word, but just postponing them for a short time.
Makes sense. My other question is, what is the projected cost savings to have the shorter and mobile stacks instead of the taller fixed traditional stacks for the books?
So we don't have an exact dollar figure for that. A lot of these items were really just, they gave them as a list and they made their own estimates because they were not engineered yet. They weren't fully designed. And it's also going to come down to how many. Right? We still, ideally would like if we can have some of them. That way we have at least one area that can be moved out, and then we have an open area versus before the original plan is all of them. So there's a, we have to assess the give and take of how many, what the quantity is, and then ultimately, once they're engineered, to really understand what that cost is. And that would all be phase one with the design builder, to look at everything that's going into their design that we're going to have, it's going to be progressed with the engineering and then with better costs, whereas the Richard Kennedy design was all schematic. It was conceptual and schematic, so they were able to put together cost estimates, but not the specifics of every little line item.
And my question for, I believe, finance, this would be, how much can we expect or project to receive from Riverside County? Are we still going to receive library funds, or was that only contingent upon us having the structure where we were paying them to manage the library?
So we do continue to receive property tax that previously went to the County of Riverside for the library services. Off the top of my head, it's right around $3 million a year. Those revenues tend to increase anywhere from 2 to 4% each year.
And you said what was the average yearly increase?
2 to 4% on average.
Okay, and if we were to explore a potential financing, how long would we explore, and would this be part of the offset, or is that already factored into the operation costs of what we would look ahead?
The financing piece, it's not included in the forecast yet. I will be bringing it to you, as Ryan mentioned earlier, at the next council meeting for consideration.
Perfect, thank you. That's it for my questions. I do have comments after my colleagues.
Terrific. Okay, Councilmember Harnick.
Thank you. I really appreciate the respectable clip, the pace that you're doing all this. When we last met, we all said, we got to move on this. Time is money, and I thank you for really moving this along. On pages 13 and 14, we have images, the brightly colored, they're both they're on the lower right side on both. Who are those from?
That's from one of the firms that presented in their, that responded to the RFP.
Okay, so would they be in consideration on, let's say, option 3, or option 2, excuse me?
Yes.
I beg your pardon. They would.
Yes, all the imagery we used from firms that are open for consideration.
Can you go to 13 again? I appreciate, they were using these at sundown. So it looks so beautiful with the light washing up those plates.
Marketing presentation, you got to make it look as beautiful as possible. Right?
And a fine job they've
every
done.
moment, yes.
Yeah. What concerns me always, and I just want to mention this now, I get so concerned about those walls of glass, because we know what the heat's like. And it's a library of things, and we want to buy lots of things, not pay for lots of electricity. Mm-hmm. So I just want to take a look. So those would be under consideration in option 2.
Yeah. So
or anything like that.
Correct. And you can see this is one that were the recommendation about that, the storefront system. So you see how there's more rigid straight lines on the glazing. This is the image that you see on the right, the bottom right. That is the north-facing side of the building, which is why there's more glass. So you have less direct sunlight into the facility. What you don't see in this image is the slight orientation that the building is set at. So it is maximized for sunlight, or I should say indirect sunlight, and minimize heat gain throughout the day. And then the image on the left, bottom left, that is the same firm, same structure, but looking from the south side. So if you're walking up from about like where the state building is, so if you're walking north towards the park, so you could see that there's less glazing, there's less glass, there's where there is glass, there is a purpose located shade. So you capture the shade where you need it. And then the feedback we received recommendation, where you do have open area, instead of it being full shade structure, we incorporate palm trees, palo verdes, other type of more cost-effective passive shading, passive cooling methods.
Okay, great. And I also had questions about the movable bookshelves, as my colleague did, but it sounds like you answered them well. And I love that. Some fixed, some movable. It makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Veronica, we touch on the property tax? I've always been curious about this. The property tax we get that was going to the county, since it's property tax, although we earmark it for library services, it's technically general fund revenue, right?
Correct. We earmark it, and we also requested that the county send it to us in a separate line item so that we would always know what that amount was, but it can be used for any general fund purpose.
So follow up to that. So if we didn't use that money for library services, it would still keep coming. In other words, it's not an assessment, a special side assessment that appears on your property tax. And if we didn't use it for library services, a taxpayer couldn't come to us and say, hey, you're committing fraud here because you're collecting it for libraries, you're not using it for libraries.
Correct.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. A couple questions. The movable bookshelves, actually, I want to touch on that. To me, they seemed like to have movable bookshelves seemed to be pretty cost effective. You pay more up front, but now you have a multi-purpose space. Is that under consideration, or is that something Shannon sort of?
So the reason they're not cost effective is because they're shorter. And so therefore you need more square footage in order to support the collection that the library has.
I got you.
So you need that much more space because you have less books per shelf.
Okay.
So it's not the actual shelf itself that's cost effective, it's the impact it has on the space.
I got it. Okay. And then, but once you put them fixed, you lose the opportunity to potentially move them around and have a speaker series with a couple hundred people and that sort of thing. Okay. The footprint is still the same from the Richard Kennedy design to the proposed design from the new.
Yes,
roughly
we have not changed anything from the Richard Kennedy architect design. That's why the option one would be for a new firm that we would contract with would continue on with the Richard Kennedy design as is. The option two would be to look at value engineering options to deliver a slightly different facility. And again, the square footage, the footprint, all of that would be part of that conversation to see what could be augmented and still deliver a good quality project.
Because the original Richard Kennedy was about 25,000 square feet?
26,000, yes.
2 buildings?
Yes.
Okay. And so under option two, that's then a movable target?
It is, yes.
The total square footage, cool.
Yes.
I didn't hear any discussion about VA space being included?
The veteran services?
Yeah.
Yes, that's not changing.
Okay.
That program is still in there. That's a necessary program that is a big one where we currently have a grant. That's the one that I mentioned. We're hoping to get response back at the end of the year. That's moving through for congressional approval. So that would also, if we were to get that would help fund the project also. Perfect. But veteran services we're not touching that. It's
good.
It's
okay,
happening.
Perfect. That's a vital resource. And it's also a larger space proposed than the current in any future design, than the current space that's they occupy the current building.
Correct. Yeah, they're currently sharing a little small workroom right now, and so we have a multi-purpose conference room that we're looking to utilize for them in the new facility, and then obviously funding, depending on what we get, and if the grant were to dictate that we needed to do more or less with it, then that's what we'd respond accordingly based on grant requirements.
Okay. And is there any possibility to create a building that is expandable in the future? In other words, with the idea of adding on square footage in the future? Because obviously library programming, we have increased foot traffic, it's growing. North Palm Desert's growing, we potentially have more residents coming. Could a design incorporate that feature?
We could, but you would want to take into many considerations of what that impact is. So some of the items that we received for value engineering recommendations were to do a phased approach, especially when we're showing two separate buildings. Build the first one now, build that second one later. But if you're looking to do, understanding, especially being that it's a library, that what is that impact to the operations if you have ongoing construction while the library is already operational, and then two, there's that escalation factor that You know, if you want to add 10,000 square feet later, if you do it today, it's one amount. If you do it in 5 years from now, it could be 3, 4, 5 times as much.
Okay. And as you described the timeline moving forward at the end of your presentation, it sounded to me like that $45 million price tag on option 2 is still a moving target, and we really won't have a final number until
We get to the GMP.
Got it. Okay. That's all I have for questions, and I'll open up for my colleagues for discussion. Any comments? No?
I have a
Oh, Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we get the, I think my colleagues see that there is the value in having the flex space and having the shorter bookshelves. I would prefer that we maybe have more bookshelves that are the shorter ones, because as we've seen, there are less books that we're going to be seeing. If we look at 20 years ago when the library was first imagined, yay, we're going to put in all these great computers, and then over time, they couldn't have imagined that all of that would go away to now a laptop kiosk. And I think that we need to be proactive in looking at the library of the future and consider that it may end up being more space as a community hub, which kudos on ensuring that we have larger gathering spaces. I think that even if it is a greater cost upfront, as the mayor mentioned, I think it allows us to have more space in the future should we decide on having any improvements where we want to expand the veteran services or we want to add another feature. I think having the ability to maintain that, especially if I mean, I love what you said, that having it in 2 phases is an option, but we would look at how much that would grow exponentially over time. That's why I think it would be more realistic and more pragmatic to have more flex space indoors. As far as the windows, I agree, they're pretty, but we can't afford more HVAC. Once we get in there, we can't go and make any changes that are of a substantial amount. Looking at it pragmatically, I think that there's a lot of very smart, very precise, and pragmatic things to evaluate. I did have one other question I remembered. What is the raised floors, I think it was?
So one of the ideas in the main area of the library was for that to be a raised, so the floor, instead of it being on the concrete, that there is an actual raised structural floor. And what that does is you can run air conditioning ducts through it, you can run data, conduit, power, all that. And so what it does is it gives you the opportunity in the future for modifying the space with more ease because it's not fixed, but ultimately there is a cost associated with that, so.
Thank you. That does make sense. When the city of Indio was opening their new police station and their public safety hub, we were able to see the raised floor. And just as they mentioned, if there's any challenges with the infrastructure, they don't have to rip anything up. It's much easier to access. And again, we don't know what the broadband needs will be in the future and what we have. So I think that I would, prefer that we allow that as one of the features to keep, just for, future thinking, looking at my potential magic 8-ball of what would be ahead. But great job. I know there's been so many moving pieces and you guys are just rolling along, so much appreciated.
Councilmember Hornick.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of this. Thank you for all the information. And I absolutely support going through the preferred design approach that the options we have. I absolutely support option 2 so that we can look at everything very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we got you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure. Yes, I support option 2 moving forward with the value engineering. And while the Richard Kennedy design is a beautiful design, it's just too expensive to build with all the glass, et cetera. And really don't want to look at sacrificing or even the potential to sacrifice other capital projects. And so I believe going down the path of option 2 helps protect some of the other capital projects that we might have to make cuts in the future if we spend too much and go over budget on the library. And also, I think with the images that were shared with us for option 2, the architecture seems to complement the current architecture we currently have at City Hall as well. And then also, I'm leaning towards having the 2 buildings, but open to just one building, depending on the cost. And you mentioned lowering the height as another option. Landscaping, I think trees are very important to keep as many trees as possible for the shade. And choosing finishes without compromising durability. And you mentioned the cafe, for example. If that business could pay for itself, maybe it's worth the extra cost to devote space for the cafe. Multi-purpose room, I believe, is very, very important. And perhaps in the future, we can host CBAG meetings again on our city campus. So I think that's important. And also, you mentioned bringing the visitor center into the lobby, and I think that's worth exploring. And those are my comments.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add. I agree with my colleagues, option 2. And good work on what you've done so far on the value engineering side.
Yeah, concur. Option 2 is great. Ryan, I know you're under the gun on this, and like you said, time's of the essence, so thanks for all the work to this point. I will say north-facing glass doesn't bother me. You know, I like the natural light effect. Maybe that will save a little electric costs on lighting and capitalize on that beautiful view we have of the park and the mountains. And we also have to ensure we have space for mahjong. We've heard from them.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
all right.
community room, we got it.
Amen. Okay, well, that does it for the study session, and we will now take a 3-minute recess and move on into closed session.